Hello and welcome to the Kylemore Christmas Edition Book Club. You're all very welcome to Ireland once again for our third installment. So lovely to see your faces again on my computer screen. We've decided to change it up for the Christmas installments for this book club session. So we're going to have, as part of our first session, some music and talking about choral choirs. So I just want to say how excited I am and how delighted I am to welcome you all to Kylemore for this installment. My name is Lisa Caulfield, and I'm the director of the Notre Dame Global Center located at Kylemore Abbey in County Galway. I want to first warmly welcome back those of you who've already participated in our past book club sessions this summer with Declan Kyberd and Professor Barry McRae. And you're returning for this session, our very special installment for the next few weeks. To those of you who are new and have just recently joined our registration, you are most welcome. As from the onset, our purpose for this meeting and this book club is really to build community in this kind of trying time that we have during the pandemic. So it's to intellectually engage with material and hopefully have some fun and some good festive cheer as we do so. I don't know if you've checked out some of the recipes that David, our chef at Kylemore, has put on to the ThinkND website. Mine is a virgin cider. I think we had an apple gin recipe on, but for those of you who are interested in the recipes for your hot cuppas, they're on the website as well. Chef David prepared some ones that you can prepare for in the comfort of your home, as well as some Christmas recipes. The team and I are really humbled by the amount of interest this program has generated. ThinkND tells me that we have 1,090 registered participants representing 25 countries from around the world who've registered on the ThinkND platform to join us over the next few weeks. So really grateful that there's such a great response and that there's so many people who have this wish to connect and to hear a bit from this small patch of Ireland. I also want to thank the sponsors of the Kylemore Book Club who've helped us make this a reality. In particular, Notre Dame International, the Keough Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, the College of Arts and Letters, the Keough School of Global Affairs, Notre Dame Learning, our partners in this session, Snipe Museum as well, and the Notre Dame Alumni Association. With regards to this session, we're going to keep in with our tradition, and we will have a 10-minute breakout session at about midway through our discussion this afternoon, this evening. And this will provide you the opportunity to meet with your fellow book club participants and share your impressions of the choral music you've heard today and perhaps listen to for today's homework. I would like to also say that we heard such wonderful stories of people meeting in these breakout sessions and how really nice it was to hear of students meeting with professors or old friends, finding each other on these breakout sessions. So it was a really nice way to connect. Now, should you not wish to go to a breakout session and not mingle with your fellow participants, it's completely fine. We just ask that you choose to stay in the main room when that option comes in. But otherwise, I encourage you to go into your breakout group. There'll be 3 or 4 of you with you to talk about the music and perhaps consider some questions that you would like to submit to our guests tonight. Now, if you do have a question in advance for our guests tonight, you can use the Google form that we're sharing with you now in our chat function. This form will update, and I'll be able to ask the questions on your behalf. Now, we'll try to get to them all as much as we can, but we are going to keep to the hour, and if it takes longer than then I do want to remind you that we do have a LinkedIn discussion board where you can participate in. So if there's any questions and we don't get to them, then I'm happy to continue the discussion with our guests and post responses on our LinkedIn discussion board. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests for this evening. Dr. Desmond Earley. This is such a distinct pleasure and honor to have you here today. You've been hailed by the Irish Times as enterprising and wide-ranging. You're the artistic director of the Choral Scholars of University College Dublin, a partner we've had for many years for our study abroad program. You have established a reputation as one of Ireland's foremost choral directors and early keyboard specialist. Desmond is a tenured professor in performance studies and is currently working on a composition project to mark the special relationship between the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and the Irish people. I would also like to welcome, on behalf of Desmond, our guest panelist, composer, Ivo Antognini. Born in Locarno, Switzerland, Ivo is a self-taught composer of jazz and choral music, and has composed for television and film scores. He is also committed to music education and is a long-standing professor in the professional training level of the Conservatorio della Sviera Italiana in Lugano. Antognini's choral choir works have won prizes at international competitions, such as the Contemporary Americana Festival in Boston, the Freudig Singers Choral Competition, and a concert dedicated completely to his choral music took place in March of 2016 at the Lincoln Center in New York City. So, in order to begin this event, I would like to now show you a video that introduces you to the Choral Scholars of the University College Dublin.
Imagine a packed church on St. Stephen's Green in Dublin with lights low, candlelight and holiday lights sparkling, a buzz in the room because it's a full house, waiting for the students to begin singing in the distance. That's how our concert series at Newman University Church opens on Dublin St. Stephen's Green every holiday season. It's 3 nights, we present the programme, and the joy we see in the audience is just the reason for doing our job. It's an amazing thing to be able to share such great music, to be able to bring carols old and new, and for the students to have that experience of presenting something special for an audience every single year. The great thing about this year for us is that we recorded a program of Christmas music, of holiday music, in a recording session in March to share with everybody who wishes to hear it. It's so exciting to be able to bring a program like this with the Irish Chamber Orchestra, the fantastic musicians of the Irish Chamber Orchestra. It's a pleasure to work with them, and of course the students of the Choral Scholars of University College Dublin.
Be All Merry is the 3rd album of the Choral Scholars. It's a Christmas album featuring contemporary arrangements of traditional carols as well as brand new commissions.
I like to think of us providing a platform for singers to work together, and a platform that develops in young singers and nurtures a commitment to excellence. It's about communication, it's about expression, it's about creativity, it's about excellence in performance standards, and it's refreshing to see how the group and the members of the group have actually developed as performers as they have gone through our programme at University College Dublin.
I think Dr. Earley's approach and his process in creating music really comes down to his appreciation of the meaning and the soul of a piece of music, and everything that we do and all the work and all the detail that we put into pieces really comes back to trying to reflect that soul of the music.
It's not something that I can pin down exactly, but it's a combination of everything, every aspect of his character. He puts himself into his conducting, and it really shines through in how we perform. We're able to do, you know, feats that we wouldn't be able to. We're able to sound as great as we can. And he knows us. He's able to bring us, and he's able to put us into the music.
What I like about working with Dr. Earley is his commitment to making something that he believes is as close to perfect as possible. He has a goal in mind, and he's willing to work hard, and he wants us to work hard, and he'll push us. But the end product is always something that we can really look back on with a lot of pride.
I'm David Agnew. I'm an oboe player with the RT Concert Orchestra, and I became involved with the Choral Scholars through a commission from the Swiss composer Ivo Antognini for the album Invisible Stars. Really, what's unique about the commission was that for the first time, instead of it just being the choir and piano or the choir on its own, it actually involved a single instrument, which certainly with the oboe and the cor anglais, both instruments that I played, it brought a very unique emotional resonance to the poems.
We've commissioned a number of composers from different countries: the United States, Latvia, Switzerland, England, Ireland, of course. And I've repeatedly gone back to work with Ivo Antognini as a composer because his work can transport the listener emotionally into a different kind of space. His palette of harmony, the way he uses the voices, the way he writes for the voice, and the way he adds instruments, the oboe, the violin or the cello. It's a fantastic sound world and a beautiful one.
I've loved over the past 3 years working with Ivo Antognini, and particularly on Be All Merry and his piece Christe, redemptor. It's such an amazing opportunity that Choral Scholars has to work with incredible composers, not just from Ireland but from all over the world, and Ivo's work has really been a feature of my experience in Choral Scholars because we've performed his work throughout my time. It features on both of our previous 2 albums.
We're so lucky to be able to commission him to create this wonderful music for us. Working with him was great. He's very involved and very approachable. It's a team effort. It's not just, you know, a one-sided thing. We're working together to create something amazing at the end of the day, and that needs to work well for both of us as a choir and for him as a composer. He needs to see us create his vision.
So that moment when you get the disc in your hand after the whole process of recording and all the work that goes into it, it's just this moment of pride where you get to listen back to all of the effort that you've put in and see the kind of the magical sound that we've been able to produce.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Desmond and Ivo, for joining us this evening. I'm going to start by asking Desmond, tell us about your background as a musician and a conductor, and particularly your work as a church musician and with choirs.
Well, first of all, Lisa, can I just say it's a great pleasure to be here, involved with the Notre Dame Kylemore Abbey project, and also just that the connection between Notre Dame and University College Dublin is such a natural connection. I remember when I was a student, Declan Kybert was a professor of English at University College Dublin, and of course he's gone off to Notre Dame now. The esteemed faculty always do that, don't they? So there seems to be a great communication between both institutions, and it's great to be here to be involved in that. Background as a musician. Well, where do I start? I mean, it's my students will find this very funny, actually, if any of them are here. It starts with singing, because I was, and the reason I say that is because I don't really sing now. I just conduct now, you know. When I was a boy, I was lucky enough to join a treble choir, a treble and men's choir in St. Mary's Priory in Tala in Dublin, run by a fantastic man called Father Tom McCarthy, who introduced us all to the music of Johann Sebastian Bach and Benjamin Britten. And I remember sitting in the choir stalls there in this old church, you know, and the organ was playing the background music of the introductory accompaniment, and thinking to myself, my God, this is a totally different world. It's like something cinematic, you know. And I loved it. I loved singing that music. I just, you know, you learn so much from the age of 8 to when your voice breaks by osmosis, just, you know, putting your feet in the pool of church music, from Mozart to Haydn to, as I say, Britten and so on. And after that, of course, I went to study organ with the chap who played organ there. His name was Charles Pearson, and Charlie, he drove a BMW 650 bike. We thought he was the coolest guy ever, but he could handle the organ, all these different layers of keyboards and the pedals and so on. And the great thing about Charlie was, and we were all mystified by this, oh yeah, you wanted up another key, you wanted up a full step, you wanted up a semitone. He could transpose anything. He was a genius. So learning music from him, I effectively covered the first year college curriculum when I was 14. So it was just a great experience. And then keyboard instruments seemed to be where it was at, going on there from organ to piano with Owen Garrett, and then on to study, a great opportunity actually to study with David Adams on the harpsichord. And the harpsichord became something special for me. And music for the harpsichord, imagine there are no instructions except the basic ones, and you have to think about everything else. So it sort of forces you to think about harmony and articulation and the meaning of music, the detail in music, and I suppose to develop a deep thought process about how music works. What is, you know, consonance? What is beauty? What is dissonance? And there's always this give and take between both. And that really informed my musical personality, working in orchestras around Europe, the European Union Chamber Orchestra. I've worked with, you know, obviously the Irish Chamber Orchestra and English Chamber Orchestra and some Baroque orchestras and so on. And then, of course, I was brought back into the choral world once more by my involvement with Choral Scholars. So it sort of came full circle in a journey. And I've developed as a musician, I think, even in my time, you know, dealing with such talented students in University College Dublin, again, because, you know, questioning yourself about what music is and how music works, it really leads you on its own journey, you know.
Thank you, Desmond. Ivo, I'll turn to you. Your setting of Jesu Dulcis Memoria was the first piece of yours performed by Desmond's choir. Tell us about this piece, its text, and your compositional process for sacred music. How do you go about composing a piece like this?
Yes, it's a good question. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored, and it's a pleasure. Well, Jesu Dulcis Memoria is one of my first pieces for mixed choir that I ever wrote. It's a quite complex composition with many voices and many different textures. It's the text is very sweet, and it speaks about hope and love. And so I imagined to set it to music in a sweet way. So normally when I begin a piece like this, first of all, I study the text. I mean, I try to memorize it by reading it through many times to understand where is the point of the rhythm of the words. And so, And in that specific case, I listened many times to the Gregorian chant, which is fantastic of this piece with the same text, Jesu Dulcis Memoria, to find inspiration. I tried to imagine a sound in my head and, if possible, to mix the old chant with a quite modern harmonization. I slightly modified the original chant at the beginning of Jesu Dulcis Memoria. I can show you. It was, the original is Jesu Dulcis Memoria, dans vera cordis gaudia. And then it goes on. And I did Jesu Dulcis Memoria. So it's quite similar, quite the same thing. And then dans vera cordis gaudia. So it's similar. It has many notes in common, but then, so the point of view of the harmonization that was not there in the Gregorian chant is completely modern and in the future. So, well, in my Jesu Dulcis Memoria, there is really plenty of Gregorian chant quotations, every time in a different voice, in a different key. But don't think that I organize or plan all that before I began to compose. Not at all. Everything came together in a very spontaneous way, I would say. So I must say that when I casually found the video on YouTube with the UCD Choral Scholars singing my Jesu Dulcis Memoria, I was really amazed by its quality. Not only the sound of the choir, but the conducting also was great. The way that Desmond understood the Jesu Dulcis Memoria, which is quite a tricky and difficult piece to be mastered. And also the video quality was spectacular. And that's why I immediately contacted Desmond Earley. And that was the beginning of our adventure. Yes.
Thank you, Ivo. They say that singing is like praying twice, right?
Oh, yes.
Des, this one's for you. Tell us about the importance of new music and music by living composers, like to you and your vision for your ensemble.
You know, Ivo's talking there about Jesu Dulcis Memoria. The great thing about that piece and Ivo's composition is the sound world he opens up to the listener. And it resonates with the performer. And this is what's quite interesting about it. It has both appeal from the listener's point of view, and it has appeal from the performer's point of view, because it's so beautiful and singable, and the harmony progresses through a real experience that resonates with one's emotions. And for me, this is a very important part of what music should be. And if we as performers, we should always try to engage with the new vision of music that composers are willing to gift us all the time. And it's art. It's art that is of today, and it is a different perspective on the world through not a visionary experience, but through an audio experience, through our own ears, that our ears see something new, as it were. And I think it's really important to have and support contemporary composers all around the world in our journey to try and find something new, a new way of living through art. And with that in mind, Choral Scholars and our, under my guidance, have actually commissioned nearly 30 new pieces from composers. So it's a great legacy to have, when you can support a composer and try to do as much justice to their work and their art as possible. It's just a very special experience for us all.
Thank you, Des. Ivo, what's it been like to work with the choral scholars at UCD and Desmond these past few years? And I guess second to that is, Irish is an ancient language that is by and large unknown. It's very different from, say, Latin or Italian. How do you find the setting of the Irish language?
Well, the first question was about the collaboration with Desmond. Well, from the first moment, I realized that working with Desmond and UCD Choral Scholars would be something really special. And when Desmond contacted me, he wanted to talk about our first project, not only one, but 3 commissioned pieces. And so he took the plane and came to me to Switzerland to a couple of days to extensively discuss about that project. And I found this really unique. And it was such a lovely time spent with Desmond and my family. And about Gaelic, about Irish, oh yes, it's a quite a strange language, I would say. In fact, I began to compose the other 2 pieces, Peace and War, and the titles are before moving on to Ever Again, because the piece in Gaelic. But I was so much inspired by the fact that it was such an ancient text and so powerful. And of course, without being guided by Desmond and a professor of modern Irish, I could never manage to set that text to music in a satisfactory way, that's for sure.
I suppose then a follow-up to that question is, did you have to alter the way you compose to suit the sound of Desmond's choir?
Actually, no. I normally write the music as it comes out in my usual way. But well, Desmond likes some things, and so I know him, and so he likes when I write SATBB, and so I normally write this way for Desmond. And when the piece is finished, so Desmond comes and makes some editing to adapt the setting to his forces, because he has a small choir. And so when you have a small ensemble like this, you have to do such a way that to obtain the best. And Desmond knows very well how to do this. Yeah. But I don't change the way to compose, no.
Thank you, Ivo. So Desmond, then, why did you choose the text of Christ Redemptor, Omnium, for the commission project with Ivo?
For me, it's coming back actually to what Ivo was saying about plainsong and the beauty and sort of innocence and the kind of purity of plain chant. All these hymn texts are from, between the 6th and 10th centuries. So Christe Redemptor Omnium, Christ Redeemer of all, is actually a Christmas nativity text for prayer, for a hymn. And what is a hymn? I mean, a hymn is a poem, but it's a poem that needs to be set to music. So it doesn't actually come into its own unless it has music surrounding it or to deliver the meaning of the words. And what I love about the Christmas or Advent and Christmas text is that it has so much imagery, such beautiful imagery, the Redeemer, the light of the world, Lumen Christe, and then you have the redemption aspect. And then it has, the redemption aspect is all about, and it says so in the actual translation and the text itself, tu spes perennis omnium, you humanities are our unfailing hope. So it gives that light and hope that is the Christmas season through the nativity. And it also just has it lends itself very strongly to a reimagining and a kind of a new musical harmonic approach. And I knew when I read the text, I knew Ivo was going to just bring this alive and make it as magical as he always does. I mean, he's just such a wonderful composer. And he has done that. And what I'd like to say, particularly about what I love about his composition, is that his scoring is really, really interesting. So he has a cello, he has a violin, and he has the chorus with the tenor. And for me, they can represent, and I'm thinking about Johann Sebastian Bach when I say this. Johann Sebastian Bach in his Passions set the Christus as the bass voice. And I'm thinking, the bass voice, the cello in this case, as Christus in Ivo's piece, the choir as the spirit, and the highest pitches the most pure sounds of the violin as the father. If you think about those elements, and those elements are very strong in the Christmas kind of texts as well, because in of course most of the last verses of any plainsong is a praise of the Trinity. So you get that element in it. I don't know if it was intentional, but Ivo is certainly inspiring me to think about those things.
And I suppose choral choirs and Christmas go hand in hand at this time, right, Desmond?
Exactly. I mean, just to say, Lisa, we are extremely fortunate to have, just before lockdown in March, to have been able to go into Blackrock College in the studio a setting with the Irish Chamber Orchestra and the Choral Scholars, and have Ivo come and visit during the recording session. I mean, how fortunate we were. We were blessed to be able to do that. And when I listen to the album now, I think, it's difficult for other ensembles. It's difficult for other choirs, groups, orchestras around the world. We have this album that represents work during normal times, and it's able to be enjoyed by everybody now when we're all hungry to think about our friends and family, and we're missing them at Christmas time. It's nice to be able to enjoy some high quality music making that happened just recently in more normal times. And I hope people will find some comfort in that,
Well, we are fortuitous in being able to have this at this time, because, as you know, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able, especially here in Ireland, to gather for choirs or for masses to hear the choral choirs. So in a way, this is a wonderful comfort to have. And we really don't know to what extent. We're just reaching out of level 5 lockdown here in Ireland. So we're opening up and we're able to attend church again, but the choirs are still restricted in most churches. So it's wonderful to have these pieces at this time too. We mentioned, Ivo, you attending this recording session in Blackrock in Dublin. How did you find the choir and the instrumentalists of the Irish Chamber Orchestra in that recording session that Desmond mentions about here?
Let me say first that Dublin is one of my favorite cities in the world, and Desmond knows this. And it was fantastic because I remember very good. It was February, and I knew that the pandemic was coming, and so I was a little bit worried. I didn't know if I could go there, but I arrived. When I arrived in that chapel in the Blackrock College, I immediately fell in love with the sound of that space, which was absolutely fantastic for a choir. I also realized that the choir was so well prepared, amazing, and everything was perfect and so professional. It sounded not like to a college. It was a professional choir. Everything was professional. I could not pretend anything better. And what to say about the rendition of my piece? Well, what I can say, it's simply splendid. You can feel the love that they put in their performance. This is the thing that you notice immediately. And I'm so sorry I could not hear the orchestra and all the other instrumentalists playing, because I had to go, and so it was a tight time, but it was fantastic, yeah.
Well, you mentioned the professionalism of the choir, and I suppose, and Desmond, this is close your ears, I suppose, but Desmond as a composer and a conductor, right? He's clearly drawn to your music. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on how he brings your pieces of music to life?
Well, actually, I never had the chance to see him really working with his singers. I only savored the final product, and so this is different. I don't know the process of his work with the choir, but what is clear to me is that Desmond does not remain on the surface, but goes deep into the music, very deep. And not all conductors do this, only very few. And so that's why it's an honor and a joy for me to work with him and his singers. Thank you, Des.
Well, I hope someday that we'll invite you both to Kylemore, and we can have a performance in the Gothic chapel that we can share with our colleagues around the world. But in the meantime, what we'll do now is, for those of you who don't mind, we're gonna put you into groups, to breakout sessions, just to introduce yourself and maybe pause and reflect and maybe ask a question or submit a question on behalf of your group, so that I could ask Des and Ivo. And so yes, it's always put up. So maybe just introduce yourselves, what stood out into the music, and if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, submit them in the form. And but if you don't want to do the breakout, and if you want to just stay and in the main room, you're happy to just stay in the main room. Just choose not to go to the breakout session. We won't judge. We'll just allow you back in after 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Okay, so we'll see you shortly. Well, I hope you enjoyed meeting a few of your fellow participants of the Kylemore Book Club. As I said, there were so many heartwarming responses of when we had these breakout sessions of people connecting and just telling a bit of their story. And really what we're attempting to do here with something that's virtual like this is really to build community in this very trying time of such isolation. And I would imagine that Thanksgiving alone was difficult, and coming into the Christmas season, it's so important that we recognize different ways of staying connected and being some creative in that. So it's great to see you all again. And please, I encourage, if you've decided to have any questions for our panelists, to definitely submit them in the chat function in the Google Forms, and I'll moderate the questions. I'll say to Des, one of the first questions we got was from Don Atkinson from Michigan. It's with regards to your Be All Merry song lyrics. Is it available in English? And you were saying that you can release it in a PDF for us. Is that right?
Oh yeah, most definitely. In fact, what I have the lyrics here that I could just send to you anyway. But I think what would be nice is, I know people are listening on Spotify, they don't get a chance to read the booklet. So perhaps what I could do is to just send you, Lisa, the PDF of the booklet that would appear with the compact disc, the hard copy. And so then they can read about all the texts, and listeners can, or viewers can enjoy sort of the history of all the music and so on.
Okay, I do have another question that just came in here now. Catherine wants to know, what was the other instrument that David Agnew plays? The oboe and...
The cor anglais. David Agnew, yeah. What do you call that in Italian, actually, Ivo? Do you know?
Corno inglese, so English horn. It's wrong because English is anglais. It means that it has an angle. But anyway, it's anglais, cor anglais.
Yeah, it's cor
English
anglais.
horn.
So English horn is probably what Americans perhaps call it in orchestras. It's that lower pitched oboe, and David is a master of this piece. I mean, he really this instrument. He's the cor anglais player for the RTE Concert Orchestra, which is Ireland's broadcast orchestra from the national broadcaster, Radio Télévision Éireann. And they're extremely versatile band. But David has been involved with Choral Scholars in many projects, and he's a wonderful, wonderful musician, and just very positive, and he's great with the students as well, which is always a bonus.
Fritz, thanks for this question, and thanks for joining us again on this session. I read from your question that in your chat room, your group had an interest in Gregorian chant CDs. Has the panel any suggestions or recommendations for the purchase of other Gregorian chant CDs?
I wouldn't know offhand from the top of my head now what to recommend there, but my gut would tell me that perhaps there is somewhere in France, in a monastery or an abbey, a group of monks that have recorded the office, the divine office, and all these kind of hymns. But I think if you put on in Spotify, for example, or Apple Music, if you put in plain chant, you probably will get a good idea of, you know, good resources there. But what I can do is, I have a friend that works on radio, and my wife also runs a radio station. And so she'll know, or my friend Tim will know what's a good disc. And what I'll do is I'll send you the name of maybe 3 or 4 albums.
I'll also say, Fritz, that the nuns that we have here at Kylemore would have a couple suggestions as well. So I'll just ask them to put it in, and I'll share that on the LinkedIn group's discussion board. And then we can also put it as additional resources on ThinkND, as well as the PDF of the song lyrics in English. My question, Des, to you is about the students' experience. Have you ever had a Notre Dame student in your UCD choral choir?
Not yet, but I'm ready for them. Bring them on. No worries.
And a follow up to that, then, what's the process? Like, I know from our own choirs and on campus, like, what's the process of auditioning once you're in on your first year? How does a student stay involved with the choir, and how competitive is the program?
Well, you know, there are only between, on average, say 18 places every year, and we open the auditions every year to every person, and so all seats are available for competition for the scholarship position. And so that means that, I suppose, students who have been there a year or two, they're quite likely to get back because they're quite experienced. But there is a possibility that somebody might come in as a junior or a fresh person, the first year we call them, in UCD, and displace somebody, and it does happen. It's quite competitive. You know, you really have to earn your place, and really it's about the philosophy of excellence, philosophy of detail, attention to detail, work. I mean, look, people think that, you know, talent is one of the most important things when it comes to music making, but I have to tell you that it's hard work, commitment to discipline, and just sticking with it. And I'm sure Ivo could talk about that in relation to composition and how you must keep the muscle active. And I hope that what the students experience and what they gain from being part of a group is that they get that sort of philosophy of collaborative work that involves always pressing forward, that involves a commitment to hard work and effort, and striving to work with the best people. That's I think is really important, and I think they understand that, and they see that it's important to actually choose excellent composers like Ivo Antognini, like Tim Stevens from Oregon, who's written a new piece. And it's important to choose great partners like the Irish Chamber Orchestra. It's important to choose the top production team and be lucky enough to be able to choose a good label. And surrounding yourself with not just competence, but excellence and the best of the best, it brings everybody up. And I think that the student experience I suppose I'd have to ask the students themselves in UCD, but I think that they do gain something from that they do appreciate that. And I would hope that they're inspired by that, as all students should be, I think, by anyone who is in a position, you know, where they're looking after their education and trying to teach them a new perspective on the world, you know.
And are these students normally doing degrees in music, or are they a part of the choral choir as a kind of extracurricular activity, or are they like dedicated musicians or, you know, singers? Like, what type of student do you get?
Well, I just, you know, what I love about this is, we do have a music school at University College Dublin, and we have some what you call music majors. So we'd have about 3 or 4 of them, but the majority of the students would be from maybe the arts and humanities plus the other faculties in University College Dublin. So we have a veterinary medicine school, we have a health sciences, so we have a medical school. And in Ireland, you go to medical school from high school. You don't take a 4-year degree and then go on. Or we have a law faculty, we have a commerce business school, a Michael Smurfit business school, and so on. And science is a big, the O'Brien Centre for Science. And so we've got students from all walks of the academic life. And I think that's one of the great advantages of this project, is that it brings students together who would not normally have ever met each other. And so they actually, they have a different network when they leave university, as well as lots of different things to talk about from different perspectives while they're in there. And it's just heartwarming to me to see that of our alumni directly from the choir, there are a number of marriages. We have second generation choral scholars on the way, which is fantastic. And, it's a great joy to see the friendships that have lasted on their part. I'm just very happy to see that they are all striving for great things and doing good work, I think, in the world. And that's what it's about. It's about empowering people with a philosophy, with a generosity of heart, and a determination and hard work to just get things done and change the world for the better,
That's wonderful, Des. We have a tally ourselves in the study abroad in Ireland of the amount of people who came to study in Ireland and met their significant other. And I recently got an email from a former student, Bridget Breedeman, who just married her love that she found in Dublin. Ivo, my question to you is, what Christmas choral album do you turn to at this time? Like, besides obviously the Be All Merry, but is there an album that you particularly turn to at this time?
Oh yes, I have one of my favorite is John Rutter with the polyphony, Stephen Layton, and it's fantastic because it's so beautiful music, and so each year I have this CD, but this particular Christmas I will have Be All Merry going through in another room, so it will be very noisy in my home. Yeah, no, I like so much Christmas music. It makes my heart very warm, really. And we need, I think, in this Christmas especially, we need Christmas music. Yeah. Choral music. Yeah.
And Desmond, do you have a favorite besides, of course, the Be All Merry that you created?
Well, my favorite choral sound is it's just on top completely. This is the one that I aspire to. This when I think of my own sound. We can't achieve it necessarily because we've got quite young voices, but the way the sound is constructed for Nigel Short's choir, Tenebrae. And it's one of the best choirs in the world. And I think it's actually probably the best chamber choir in the world. It's a UK choir based around London called Tenebrae. And it's run by Nigel Short, who incidentally was the producer of our album. And his group, he was a former King singer, and he's produced so many albums for different labels in the UK. And he's got fantastic ears, really amazing detail that he can hear in a chord. He can pick out, the students are laughing because he can come out and pick out a note in the second tenor line in a 10-part piece and say, tenors 2, you just need to, just would you mind awfully just, find that tuning issue there. Nigel's great, and he's come over to work with the students many times in UCD. But yeah, anything by Tenebrae Choir is not a waste of time by any means. You're going to get something from it, and I would urge everybody to listen to that group.
The other question that came in now was, what was the name of the John Ritter CD?
I really don't remember. I was thinking about it. It has it's blue with some lights, but I really don't remember this name in this moment.
That's okay. We'll look it up and we'll share it with the group in my letter to the group when we have our next session.
So that just afterwards, yeah.
Well, on behalf of Think ND, the Notre Dame Center at Kylemore, and my community of that we've assembled here today, I want to say thank you to you both for joining us in this hour. It was a real pleasure having this conversation with you. We will most definitely be listening to your CD and celebrating the Christmas spirit with you. And thank you for getting it out to us before this awful pandemic hit us all. as we leave then, Zoe, I'd like to play the last video, and to everyone else, I'll see you next week, next Wednesday, same time, same place, for a Notre Dame alum, Betsy Cornwell.
Hi.
Thanks very much. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.